The moment Tom Cruise sat across from Michael Strahan on Good Morning America, few expected anything beyond the usual promotional charm. Cruise, known for his controlled media presence, appeared calm at first, smiling politely as cameras rolled. But there was an undercurrent in the air, a tension viewers could almost feel through the screen. What began as a standard interview slowly shifted, as questions became sharper and the actor's body language subtly changed, signaling that this would not be just another friendly morning show appearance. Michael Strahan, experienced and confident, leaned into questions that many fans felt were overdue. He referenced Cruise's intense work ethic, his reputation for control on set, and the public curiosity surrounding his personal beliefs. While Strahan's tone remained professional, the framing of the questions suggested a desire to push past rehearsed answers. Cruise's smile tightened, his pauses grew longer, and viewers began noticing that the actor was choosing his words far more carefully than before. As the interview progressed, Cruise shifted from relaxed to visibly guarded. When Strahan attempted to redirect the conversation toward behind-the-scenes dynamics on Cruise's latest project, the actor's expression hardened. Instead of the usual promotional enthusiasm, Cruise offered brief, controlled responses. The energy in the studio changed, creating a stark contrast to the upbeat atmosphere Good Morning America is known for, and audiences immediately sensed something was off. The turning point came when Strahan pressed further, referencing past controversies and public criticism Cruise has faced over the years. While the question was phrased diplomatically, its implication was clear. Cruise straightened in his chair, locking eyes with Strahan in a way that felt deliberate and intense. For a brief moment, the studio seemed silent, as if everyone was waiting to see whether Cruise would deflect or confront the question head-on. Instead of sidestepping, Cruise responded with a firm, measured statement that caught many viewers by surprise. He emphasized boundaries, explaining that his work speaks for itself and that certain topics, in his view, are repeatedly sensationalized rather than understood. His tone wasn't loud, but it was unmistakably authoritative. This wasn't a man dodging scrutiny, it was someone drawing a clear line in real time. Strahan, clearly aware of the shift, attempted to lighten the moment with a follow-up that redirected toward Cruise's career longevity. But the mood had already changed. Cruise nodded politely, yet his responses remained clipped and deliberate. The actor's usual warmth felt replaced by a professional distance, suggesting that the earlier question had struck a nerve he was no longer willing to expose on live television. Viewers watching at home immediately took to social media, dissecting every glance and pause. Some praised Cruise for standing his ground, arguing that celebrities are often unfairly pressured to address personal matters unrelated to their work. Others felt Strahan was simply doing his job, asking questions the public has long been curious about. The divide grew quickly, fueling online debate within minutes of the segment airing. Cruise then delivered what many fans later described as the moment he shut down the interview. Calm but firm, he stated that he prefers conversations centered on craft, storytelling, and the collaborative effort behind filmmaking. He added that speculative narratives often distract from the work itself. While his words were polite, the message was unmistakable. This line of questioning was over. Strahan nodded respectfully, acknowledging Cruise's point, but the chemistry between the two had noticeably cooled. The remaining minutes of the interview felt structured and restrained, with both men carefully navigating each exchange. What was meant to be a celebratory segment now carried an unspoken tension, leaving viewers wondering what had happened once the cameras stopped rolling. Industry insiders later weighed in, noting that Cruise is famously protective of his public image and deeply intentional about how his story is told. To them, the moment wasn't an outburst but a calculated assertion of control. Cruise didn't raise his voice or storm off. Instead, he redirected the narrative with precision, reminding audiences that he dictates the terms of his public engagements. Fans of Cruise quickly rallied online, sharing clips and praising his composure under pressure. Many argued that the actor handled the situation with professionalism, refusing to be baited into controversy. Supporters pointed out that live television interviews often blur the line between journalism and entertainment, and Cruise's response highlighted that tension in a way few moments ever do. Critics, however, saw the exchange differently. Some felt Cruise appeared overly defensive, suggesting that his reaction only fueled curiosity rather than shutting it down. They argued that public figures benefit from transparency and that shutting down questions can sometimes create more speculation. This clash of interpretations kept the interview trending long after it aired. Media analysts began breaking down the bodied language from both sides. Cruise's steady gaze, controlled gestures, and deliberate pauses were interpreted as signs of assertiveness. Strahan's measured responses and subtle attempts to move forward showed an awareness of the live broadcast's constraints. Together, these elements transformed a simple interview into a case study in televised power dynamics. What made the moment resonate was its subtlety. There was no shouting match, no dramatic walkout. Instead, it was the quiet firmness of Cruise's response that left a lasting impression. In an era where viral moments often rely on chaos, this exchange stood out precisely because of its restraint and underlying intensity. For Good Morning America, the segment sparked conversations about interview boundaries and audience expectations. Morning shows walk a delicate line between light entertainment and meaningful conversation. This interview reminded viewers how quickly that balance can shift when a guest decides to reclaim control of the narrative. Cruise's long career has been marked by moments of intense scrutiny, and this interview added another chapter to that history. Rather than revisiting old controversies directly, Cruise chose to refocus on his work, signaling a refusal to let past narratives dominate present conversations. To many, this was a strategic move rooted in decades of media experience. The aftermath saw countless reaction videos, commentary threads, and opinion pieces flooding social platforms. Some fans recreated the moment frame by frame, analyzing the exact second Cruise's demeanor changed. Others debated whether the exchange was uncomfortable or simply misunderstood, showing how a few minutes of television can generate days of discourse. Strahan, for his part, received both praise and criticism. Supporters applauded him for asking thoughtful, challenging questions, while detractors accused him of pushing too far. That discussion highlighted the difficult role interviewers play when speaking with high-profile figures who are both media-savvy and protective. As the clip continued circulating, it became clear that the phrase "shut down" meant different things to different people. For some, it symbolized empowerment and boundary setting. For others, it suggested avoidance. This ambiguity kept the story alive, ensuring that the interview would be remembered long after newer headlines emerged. Cruise has never publicly commented on the exchange beyond the interview itself. His silence only added to the intrigue, leaving fans and critics alike to interpret the moment on their own. In a media landscape driven by constant commentary, choosing not to elaborate can be as powerful as speaking out. Hollywood observers noted that moments like this reveal the evolving relationships between celebrities and the press. Gone are the days when stars passively accepted every question. Today, many actively shape interviews in real time, redefining what access truly means in the modern era. The interview also reignited conversations about authenticity versus performance. Was Cruise being genuine, or was he executing a carefully planned response? Opinions varied, but the fact that the question was even asked underscored how compelling the moment was for viewers across the spectrum. For longtime fans, the exchange reinforced Cruise's reputation as disciplined and uncompromising. They saw a man who knows his boundaries and refuses to let live television dictate his narrative. To them, that confidence was part of what has sustained his career for decades. Casual viewers, however, may have simply felt the discomfort of watching a conversation take an unexpected turn. Morning television thrives on ease and relatability, and this moment disrupted that formula. The unease was subtle but unmistakable, making it all the more memorable. As entertainment news cycles moved on, the clip remained a reference point whenever discussions about tough interviews resurfaced. It became an example cited by commentators when talking about power, control, and media strategy in celebrity culture. Whether intentional or not, the interview reminded audiences that even carefully planned appearances can veer off script. Live television offers no safety net, And moments of genuine tension can't be edited away. That unpredictability is precisely what keeps viewers watching. Cruise's ability to maintain composure while firmly redirecting the conversation demonstrated a level of media mastery few possess. Without escalating the situation, he managed to assert himself in a way that left a lasting impression on both supporters and skeptics. For Strahan, the interview showcased the challenges of balancing curiosity with respect. Asking meaningful questions while honoring a guest's boundaries is a tightrope, and this exchange illustrated just how narrow that line can be. Ultimately, the moment became less about the specific questions asked and more about the dynamics between interviewer and guest. It served as a reminder that power in interviews is shared and constantly negotiated second by second. Long after the broadcast ended, the exchange continued to echo across social media and entertainment discussions. Whether viewed as a shutdown, a boundary, or simply a tense moment, the interview secured its place as one of those rare television moments that linger, inviting debate, interpretation, and reflection long after the cameras stop rolling. As days passed, the interview took on a life of its own, becoming a reference point in conversations about celebrity control and media pressure. Fans revisited older interviews, comparing Cruise's demeanor and noting how rarely he allows moments of visible friction. This rarity made the exchange with Strahan feel significant, almost symbolic, as if it revealed a glimpse behind the carefully maintained public image that Cruise has refined over decades in the spotlight. Commentators began framing the moment as a clash between two worlds: the polished promotional circuit and the audience's hunger for unfiltered honesty. Cruise represented a generation of stars trained to protect mystique, while Strahan embodied modern broadcasting's push for relatability and transparency. The tension between those philosophies played out in real time, turning a short segment into a broader cultural discussion. Some media critics argued that Cruise's response was not defensive but strategic, suggesting he anticipated such questions and chose restraint over confrontation. By remaining calm, he avoided giving the moment explosive energy while still making his boundaries unmistakably clear. This approach, they said, demonstrated a sophisticated understanding of how quickly narratives spiral when fueled by emotion. Others focused on the audience reaction, noting how quickly viewers assigned blame or praise. Within hours, clips were edited with dramatic music, captions exaggerated, and reactions amplified. The original nuance of the exchange risked being lost as the internet distilled it into a simple headline, proving once again how modern media often favors impact over context. Entertainment lawyers and publicists even weighed in, explaining that high-profile interviews are often guided by pre-agreed topics. From this perspective, the moment felt less spontaneous and more like a reminder that stepping outside those boundaries can trigger immediate pushback. Cruise's reaction, they suggested, was less personal and more professional protocol. Meanwhile, longtime viewers of Good Morning America noticed how the show handled the aftermath. There were no on-air clarifications or follow-ups, a silence that many interpreted as intentional. By not revisiting the moment, the program allowed the audience to draw its own conclusions, subtly acknowledging the sensitivity of what had occurred. Cruise's co-stars and collaborators remained publicly silent, which only deepened the intrigue. In Hollywood, silence often speaks volumes, and the lack of commentary suggested a collective decision not to inflame speculation. This restraint contrasted sharply with the non-stop analysis happening online, highlighting the divide between industry insiders and public discourse. For aspiring actors and media students, the interview became an educational example. It illustrated how presence, tone, and timing can shift an entire conversation without overt conflict. Cruise didn't dominate the exchange verbally. Instead, he controlled it through composure, reminding observers that authority doesn't always require volume. Strahan's supporters emphasized his background as an athlete-turned-broadcaster, praising his ability to remain composed under pressure. They noted that live interviews are unpredictable and that his calm pivot after Cruise's response demonstrated professionalism. Rather than escalating, he adapted, preserving the flow of the show despite the underlying tension. As weeks went by, the moment began to symbolize a larger question about access. How much of a public figure's personal world is fair game? And who gets to decide? Cruise's stance suggested that access is conditional, granted when it aligns with purpose rather than curiosity alone. That discussion also touched on generational shifts and celebrity culture. Younger stars often embrace oversharing, while veterans like Cruise maintain distance. This contrast made the interview feel like a crossroads, where differing expectations collided in front of millions of viewers. Fans revisiting the clip often pointed out subtle details: a pause before Cruise spoke, the way Strahan adjusted his posture, the brief silence that followed. These micro-moments became symbols of unspoken negotiation, showing how much communication happens beyond words. Over time, the initial heat of the debate cooled, but the clip remained bookmarked in entertainment history. It joined the collection of interviews remembered not for what was said, but for what was implied. In that sense, its impact outlasted countless louder controversies. The exchange ultimately reinforced Tom Cruise's reputation as a master of control in an industry built on exposure. By setting boundaries publicly yet calmly, he reminded audiences that mystery can still coexist with fame, even in an era driven by constant visibility. In the end, the interview's legacy lies in its ambiguity. There was no clear winner, no dramatic fallout, only a moment that invited interpretation. That uncertainty is what keeps it alive in conversation, proving that sometimes the quietest confrontations leave the deepest impression. As the story continued circulating, media historians began comparing the interview to past moments where celebrities subtly reclaimed power from broadcasters. Unlike explosive confrontations of earlier decades, this exchange reflected a modern evolution of measured, restrained, yet unmistakably firm. It showed how authority on television no longer relies on dominance but on clarity, something Cruise demonstrated with almost surgical precision. The interview also sparked renewed interest in how celebrities prepare for live appearances. Insiders suggested that Cruise likely anticipated challenging questions and mentally rehearsed responses designed to redirect without escalating. This preparation, earned over years of global press tours, allowed him to stay composed even when the conversation drifted into uncomfortable territory. Viewers who initially missed the broadcast discovered it later through clips and commentary, often encountering the moment framed more dramatically than it originally unfolded. This gap between reality and perception highlighted how digital amplification can reshape meaning, turning subtle tension into perceived confrontation with just a few edits and captions. Some cultural commentators argued that the fascination with the interview revealed more about audiences than the participants themselves. The eagerness to label the moment as a shutdown reflected a broader appetite for conflict, even when the reality was nuanced and restrained. In that sense, the reaction became part of the story. Cruise's response style was dissected in communication forums, where experts praised his ability to assert boundaries without alienating the interviewer or audience. His tone remained respectful, his language deliberate, offering a lesson in how firmness and politeness can coexist effectively in high-pressure situations. The moment also reignited debates about whether morning shows should push deeper conversations or stick to lighter fare. Some viewers felt the question disrupted the show's comforting routine, while others welcomed the glimpse of authenticity. This divide underscored how audience expectations for media formats continue to evolve. Over time, the interview was cited in discussions about celebrity longevity. Cruise's decades-long career, built on discipline and control, was seen by many as evidence that maintaining boundaries can be as crucial as talent. The exchange became an example of how seasoned stars protect their narrative to sustain relevance. Strahan's handling of the situation earned respect from colleagues in broadcasting, who recognized the challenge of navigating unexpected tension live on air. His ability to pivot without defensiveness demonstrated adaptability, a skill essential for any interviewer operating without the script's safety net. As newer entertainment stories emerged, the interview gradually faded from headlines but not from memory. It resurfaced whenever conversations turned to difficult interviews, celebrity power dynamics, or the limits of public curiosity, proving its lasting resonance beyond the news cycle. Fans revisiting the clip months later often described noticing new details with each viewing. What once seemed tense now appeared controlled, even deliberate, reinforcing the idea that perception shifts over time as emotional reactions give way to reflection. The exchange also influenced how some viewers approached media consumption, becoming more aware of how narratives are shaped in real time. It encouraged a closer look at tone, pacing, and context rather than relying solely on headlines or viral labels. For Cruise, the moment quietly reaffirmed his image as someone who operates on his own terms. Without issuing statements or clarifications, he allowed the interview to stand as is, trusting that his long-established reputation would contextualize his response better than any follow-up ever could. In contrast, the silence surrounding the moment demonstrated how not every media flashpoint requires resolution. Sometimes, allowing ambiguity to exist preserves dignity on both sides, preventing a brief exchange from spiraling into prolonged controversy. As entertainment journalism continues to evolve, moments like this serve as reference points for future interviews. They remind both hosts and guests that live television is a shared space, governed by mutual respect and unspoken boundaries negotiated in real time. Ultimately, the interview endures not because of what was asked or answered, but because of how it felt. That subtle shift in energy, captured live and dissected endlessly, transformed a routine appearance into a lasting example of modern media tension, a quiet, controlled, and unforgettable. In retrospect, the interview became a case study for celebrity media relations. It highlighted how stars like Tom Cruise, who've experienced both public adoration and intense scrutiny, can navigate live interviews in a way that protects their personal boundaries while still engaging with the media. It underscored the growing trend of calculated responses, where what is not said is just as important as what is. As the conversation continued online, some pointed out that Cruise's quiet power in interviews could be traced back to his early career. Known for his intensity and focus, the actor had long ago learned to manage the spotlight, never allowing his personal life to become the focal point of his public image. In that sense, his refusal to address certain topics wasn't a breakdown in communication but a reaffirmation of his ability to control his narrative. The moment also revealed how much modern audiences crave authenticity in celebrity interactions. The clash between Cruise's calculated responses and Strahan's probing questions raised the question of what authenticity truly means in a media landscape where nothing is spontaneous. Some fans praised Cruise's calm as a display of realness, while others argued that by controlling the narrative so tightly, he was creating a performative version of authenticity. For broadcasters, the incident served as a reminder that not all celebrity interviews go according to plan. Strahan's handling of the tensions showed the tightrope walk between being respectful and remaining true to the audience's desire for deeper insights into a star's persona. The brief but sharp standoff between the two was a reminder that the stakes of celebrity interviews are high, and not just for the guests but for the interviewers and their shows too. The internet buzz around the interview didn't just stop with fans and critics. It also prompted media professionals to ask themselves deeper questions about their role in shaping public perception. Was it their job to maintain the comfort of the star, or should they push for difficult truths? This incident amplified a broader conversation within the entertainment industry about the ethical responsibility of journalists when engaging with high-profile figures. As months passed, the interview continued to make appearances in articles and media roundups, sometimes framed as a pivotal moment in the ongoing conversation about celebrity autonomy. It was held up as an example of how modern celebrities navigate the tricky waters between promoting a public image and protecting their private lives, often with very little room for compromise. One of the most interesting aspects of the exchange was its brevity. What might have been a lengthy argument or dramatic fallout instead became a sharp, almost fleeting moment of tension. It was as if both Cruise and Strahan recognized the limits of their engagement and chose to end the exchange before it spiraled. That restraint left viewers with more questions than answers, which is often the hallmark of memorable media moments. Cruise's decision to not escalate the conversation, despite the clear provocation, was seen by many as a sign of his maturity in the industry. As someone who's weathered both public criticism and overwhelming adulation, he showed that sometimes the greatest strength lies in knowing when to withdraw and allow the moment to pass without giving it more fuel. In the days following the interview, The clip made its rounds across various platforms, often with added commentary or spin. Some saw Cruise's composed reaction as a win for the celebrity class, demonstrating that stars don't always have to capitulate to media pressures. Others argued that it was a missed opportunity to address some of the unresolved questions that have followed him throughout his career. The aftermath revealed just how much a simple interview could spark discussions about power dynamics in modern celebrity culture. In the digital age, where everything is dissected and replayed endlessly, moments like these aren't just about the interview itself but about the narrative surrounding it. The ways in which both Cruise and Strahan were analyzed showed how deeply entrenched these media expectations have become. For Cruise's devoted fans, the interview only solidified their belief that he is a master of controlling his public persona. His calculated, yet measured, response served as a reminder that his career is a product of careful curation and not only of his roles but of his entire public-facing image. They admired his ability to steer the conversation without being pushed into areas he didn't want to discuss. Conversely, there were fans of Strahan who felt the moment was proof of the host's bravery in pushing boundaries. They pointed to his calm approach in the face of Cruise's subtle refusal to engage as evidence that Strahan wasn't afraid to ask tough questions. In a landscape where celebrity interviews often feel scripted, Strahan's attempt to break through the polished Section 8 felt refreshing to many. The debate over whether Cruise shut down Strahan or simply set boundaries became a focal point of discussion in talk shows, podcasts, and even academic circles. The term shutdown itself became a buzzword, one that both captured the tension of the interview and framed it within the larger conversation about the intersection of celebrity power and media influence. Many viewers who felt uncomfortable with the interview found themselves questioning why the interaction had such a lasting impact. It wasn't just their refusal to answer certain questions, it was the palpable shift in energy between Cruise and Strahan. It was as if the audience, too, became part of the negotiation, and their discomfort became part of the story. The entire exchange was less about the content and more about the feelings it stirred. The aftermath also invited an important reflection on how the media industry has changed in recent years. Celebrity interviews, which once took place in controlled settings and with careful preparation, now unfold on a global stage with every viewer acting as an armchair critic. The viral nature of these moments only heightened the stakes, turning a simple conversation into a battleground for public opinion. With time, the interview became part of a broader discussion about how celebrities handle controversy. Cruise's poise was often contrasted with more theatrical celebrity meltdowns or viral confrontations. His refusal to engage deeply with Strahan's questions positioned him as someone in control, rather than a passive participant in the media circus. As more time passed, some began analyzing the subtleties of celebrity responses to awkward moments. Cruise's brief but powerful engagement with Strahan was praised for its professionalism. His ability to walk the fine line between engagement and division was viewed as an art form, one that younger celebrities would likely study for years to come. The lingering impact of the interview also illustrated the growing role of social media in amplifying moments like this. With clips of the exchange continuously circulating on Twitter, TikTok, and YouTube, it became impossible to ignore the ongoing discussions surrounding it. Fans, commentators, and casual viewers all had the opportunity to dissect it, and in doing so, they created an ever-evolving narrative. One of the more interesting side effects of the interview was how it forced a re-examination of media narratives around celebrities. The debate over whether Cruise had shut down Strahan or whether Strahan had simply been out of line brought into question the very idea of access to public figures. What does it mean for an audience to demand answers? And where do we draw the line between journalistic curiosity and personal respect? In the end, the interview not only reshaped perceptions of Tom Cruise but also served as a reminder of the power of restraint. In an era where public figures are often expected to bear all, Cruise's ability to hold his ground without going on the offensive was a testament to the quiet strength of knowing when to remain silent and how that silence can speak volumes.